So as you know, Sony ZV-1F is the brand new entry line into Sony vlogging cameras, and I mean, I have to be honest, from the specs and the look of things, I'm not so impressed, but I can see why it might be a compelling choice for some of you out there, especially if you are new or thinking about getting into vlogging. What's up guys, it's Anand back from not Bangkok actually. We are right now in Bang Sen Beach. I came here for a nice evening with Pim, but Sony had to release another camera during this time, and now I have to talk about it. So let's talk about it. So from the marketing material, Sony is trying to push this towards vloggers, but we are living in a time when there's so many options for vlogging, so we have to make some comparison with this new camera, specifically with some of the smartphones out there. So hopefully this video will help you decide whether you should invest in ZV-1F or possibly even get a new iPhone. So to make this comparison simpler, I want to split this video into two sections. One, the specs, and the second part is the ease of use and actual usability. Hopefully by the end of the video you'll know which is the right fit for you. Before we get into it, let's look at some of the specs for ZV-1F. As you know, ZV-1F is a compact vlogging camera with a 1-inch sensor inside, and the key differentiating factor for this camera from ZV-1 is this: the 1F has a fixed lens. The lens is equivalent of 20mm in the full frame sense, and it has an aperture at the widest of f2. So what does that mean? That basically means you can't zoom using this camera, unlike the ZV-1. And the 1-inch sensor inside is a 20 megapixel CMOS sensor, and the camera can shoot up to 4K 30 frames per second with the full sensor readout, which is good because there is no crop in 4K 30 even. But the camera can only shoot 8-bit videos, which is fine for casual vlogging and content creation. The camera doesn't have face detect autofocus, but it detects the face, but don't be confused, it's a contrast-based autofocus, not eye tracking and all that stuff. The ZV-1F also features a fully articulating screen, which is great for vlogging. You can keep checking your framing as you're filming, which is quite good, which is in line with all the new Sony cameras. Even the latest FX30 has one. So I guess Sony is gonna implement that in all future cameras, which is great for us. Talking about the lens, 20mm f2. As you know, we can't zoom using this lens, but we can use the Sony's clear image zoom. But the clear image zoom with this camera won't give as much reach as some of the other APS-C cameras. I believe it can go up to 1.3x zoom because it's only a 20 megapixel sensor, right? And there's only so much you can crop into that compared to Sony's APS-C lineup of cameras, which has up to 24 megapixel. Which has up to 24 megapixels, so you can zoom up to 1.5 times. And since this is a ZV lineup of cameras from Sony, so ZV lineup is basically targeted towards vloggers, and it has all the vloggy features, I would say. You know, it has product showcase, it has face priority exposure. Like if you're in auto exposure, it prioritizes your face. It exposes for your face first, even if it means blowing out your background. And of course, this can take 20 megapixel images, but not that it cannot shoot RAW. It can only shoot JPEGs. And from the look of things, JPEGs looks fine, plausible for social media work. And arguably the most important specification of this camera is this price. So the camera comes in at $499, which is, I would say, quite tough to recommend, especially because there are so many options, so many other options right now, which can get you a much better result in 2022. And this is when I want to start comparing it to some of the smartphones out there. So I've been vlogging my pretty face for quite a while now, and I can tell when I started out, I just used the wide angle lens because at that time I thought, okay, I just want to capture what I'm speaking and I want to show some of the background, and wide angle was plenty for me. But eventually I realized that to make a good compelling video, you need to have a variety of shots with different focal lengths and different types of shots. For example, a wide angle lens can only do so much when it comes to type of shots, right? Like sure, for an establishing shot, it's amazing. You show the whole thing, what's around you, sure, amazing. But if you wanna show some of the detailed shots, some of the most let's say cinematic shot, you need to have some other type of lenses in your arsenal. But in 2022, we can't ignore an amazing camera which we all have access to if we can spend a little bit more money than $500, and that is your smartphone camera. Most of the smartphone cameras now comes with 3 lenses minimum, and that gives you access to 3 different focal lengths, which is really important if you want to tell a good story. Oh, that looks so good.
Ugh. 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 Ugh.
I don't want to take names, but some of the famous reviewers in YouTube, they use the front-facing camera to show the comparison. But let's get real, if you're really vlogging with your phone, you really want to use the back camera to get the most quality. And I believe we should really make the comparison of ZV-1F with, oh, it's getting confusing with all the ZVs, with the rear cameras of these smartphones. So I had the chance to use phone like iPhone 13, which in my experience is really good, especially the main 1x zoom, 1x camera. Even in low light, barely any noticeable noise, which is amazing. And that's what I really want you guys to focus on. I believe the main rear camera of iPhone is a 24mm equivalent, which is plenty wide if you want to vlog. But comparing that to the 20mm lens in the ZV-1, sure, ZV-1 is much wider at f2, but the images which you get out of it, especially in 4K, would be pretty wobbly because it has a very slow sensor readout time, same like ZV-1. Sure, the ZV-1 did have a better sensor readout time than A60 X6000 cameras, but still very noticeable compared to some of the smartphone cameras. And in some of the YouTube videos, you must have seen them showing videos taken in the night, which looked pretty good. But in my opinion, the videos shot using an iPhone in the night is very comparable. Now, before I start sounding like I'm trying to discourage you from buying this camera, let me just clarify that I'm just trying to say what's real, like what's happening in the world, right? And hopefully help you to make a better decision. I can see some really good use of this camera, but quality wise, something else wins for sure. And to continue about the shot varieties, since in iPhone you have access to 3 different lenses, you can mix up your videos using videos from the wide angle, the telephoto, the main camera, which in the end adds to the flavor of your video. Wow, the sun is just popping right now. Let me show you. But we have no time for that. We have to talk about this camera. So previously I have shot videos using just an iPhone. If you want to check out what you can do with just an iPhone, please do check out this video right here. To come to the second part of this video, which is the ease of use and stuff, I'll have to start by saying, obviously having a dedicated camera with you would be easier to vlog, especially because the camera is just over 330 grams, which is quite light, including the lens. That I'm sure the mic on it sounded plausible, but it'll be better if you can invest on some shotgun mic to go with it. And the lens doesn't protrude, and it's more or less like a pancake lens. It's barely anything, nothing really is protruding like some of the other lenses which you see in mirrorless cameras. So yeah, definitely a quite cute, handy camera. But again, the best camera is the one which is with you all the time, and that is your smartphone always. And ergonomics wise, it's not the easiest to hold because the grip is quite small and it doesn't look like there's much of a grip, textured grip to hold, which can be quite flimsy to hold. Hi, future me here. Way out in one actually. It gave me some time to really step back and do some more research about this camera. You know, those YouTube videos which you just watched, Mark Bennett's Camera Crisis, Jason Morris. How do you know? YouTube is smart enough to show me what you all are watching other than me. It even shows me that 90% of you watching are not subscribed. That's right, I'm looking at you, Kevin. So what are you waiting for? Please subscribe. There are a lot of exciting things which are about to happen in this channel. By the way, if you're thinking of picking up this camera just for the vlogging things and you don't care about the low light performance, I strongly advise you pick up an action camera like the latest GoPro 11 or even the DJI Action 3. It'll be much wider, so much more frame rate options, slow motion in 4K, and great stabilization, and cheaper even if you go with the DJI Osmo Action 3. Only thing which you'll be losing out, as I said, is the low light performance and of course the background blur when you're vlogging. And if you're choosing this over a smartphone, you'd lose again the stabilization, the frame rate options, and amazing HDR. The HDR in these latest smartphones are insane. Like, I don't know how they're doing it. Like, there's no way for an image which is coming out of a tiny sensor to look like that. Magic, pure magic. That's how they do it. By the way, this camera does record gyro data, so that means you can stabilize the footage using Catalyst Browse, but that's an extra step. I mean, do you really want to go through all that trouble for stabilization? Just get a camera with it. And in Catalyst Browse, you can only stabilize videos up to 1080p. I mean, you can stabilize 4K videos also, but they will output in 1080p. If you have to go into the 4K ones, you have to pay, I think it's around, I don't know, I'll put it up right here, per month, and which is an extra cost, which adds up really. Plus the render time. Mark Bennett talks about it all the time that 1 minute of his clip takes 3 minutes to render, which is which is not ideal. So going by a careless browse route, I would not recommend at all. So after thinking about all these reasons which I spoke about earlier, I think this camera is really good for a few specific scenarios, specifically where the camera can just rest at one place and you don't have to keep moving it around. So it makes a great webcam for scenarios like live streaming or even just general Zoom calls. The quality which you get from this camera would be miles better than the inbuilt webcam in your laptops, and also most of the external webcams which you get in the market. It could also be a great podcast or interview camera where you just have to keep the camera in one place and you don't have to worry about it, and having no record limit really helps. It could also be a great behind the scenes camera. In that scenario, you wouldn't really care about all the other drawbacks which I mentioned earlier. And if you're willing to put up with all this, it could be a great vlogging camera as well. So guys, if this was helpful, pretty please vote this up to let YouTube know that you liked it. Yeah, YouTube is not smart enough to know that you liked it yet. Maybe in future someday you don't even have to like the video. Alright guys, I guess I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya.